Hello everyone and welcome to another educational video about screen printing by Catspit Productions. Today we're going to take a quick look at direct-to-garment versus screen printing. Okay, because a lot of people in the industry, when you're starting out in getting involved with printing or decorating or embellishing garments or t-shirts, you know, sometimes you might look at direct-to-garment as a, valid or viable solution to starting at home. Except that there's a few things to consider. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a field trip over to Grammatical Art here in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and visit with our good friend Natalie. She did a testimonial video for us, as I'm sure you remember, and she screen prints, but she also does direct-to-garment, and she has a pretty successful business I think it's kind of founded, around Etsy. She does a lot of work on Etsy, a lot of business on Etsy, but she has a website and everything, So Natalie was very gracious and super awesome in allowing us to come over on a Saturday, okay, while she had to have a babysitter and everything, okay. She was just so great. Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate it so much. And we had a good time. It was working on the weekend, but I had fun. I had some fun. Natalie's a great woman, super girl. And so this video, let me get on to the point. This video is about the Jack White art that I made and shared on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know what I'm talking about. I am going to see Jack White next week at Comerica Theater here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I really enjoy Jack. The simplicity of what he does in the way that he makes it extraordinary is just brilliant to me. A lot of his stuff, not all of it, because he's actually a pretty accomplished guitarist, and some people may argue that he's not the greatest technical guitarist, but that's not the point, okay? He's an artist, and he's really good at what he does, and he takes very simple things and kind of arranges them in a extraordinary, complex manner that makes them something more than they are, or were, or I don't know. So I love this. I love this because I play rhythm guitar, and I enjoy screwing around with simple rhythms that are kind of based in sound more than anything. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm not sure what I'm talking about. And by the way, I don't know how to play guitar. I mean, I can fake it, but yeah, it's not like I'm some kind of technical guitarist, like the guy who did my intro music, right? William Taylor Wright, if I can remember, and I apologize, Will, if I forget, but I can look. It's been a little while. He redid my intro music, and it's really cool. It was based on a rhythm that I created in high school and stuff. So yeah, so I like music a lot. And so let's go over to Natalie's place and learn a little bit about direct-to-garment while we print some shirts that I'm gonna wear one, and I'm gonna take one and maybe throw it at Jack on the stage. Hopefully I won't get kicked out or anything. All right, so I don't know. I made it to wear, really. All right, so let's go over to Natalie's place and take a look at direct-to-garment versus screen printing. All right, so we finally made it over here to Natalie's place, and you guys probably remember Natalie from a testimonial video she did for me a little while back. Mm-hmm. That was very cool of you. Yeah. And she's helping us out again today. So we're gonna look at this whole direct-to-garment thing, because you do some direct-to-garment and screen printing. And you do novelty type shirts is what we would kind of call them in the industry. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I own Grammatical Art, so it's like grammar, science, all things nerdy. So I'm a direct-to-consumer screen printer, and I also implemented DTG about 4 years ago.
Cool. Okay, so that means where can we find you online?
So grammaticalart.com and also grammaticalara.etsy.com.
All right, cool. So what you do is you have different designs that you've created, and you have them online for sale, and you basically print them as they're ordered, a lot of them. Okay, so what you employ is both techniques of screen printing. Natalie has a little bit of a screen printing setup right here in the same room, and then for other types of stuff, she will use direct-to-garment.
Yes.
So we're going to look at that today. We're printing that shirt, right? The Jack White shirt that I told you about earlier. We're going to print that. So we're going to let you watch the shirt be printed as we ask Natalie some questions about direct-to-garment versus screen printing. Okay, so a lot of the time the first thing that you need to do is pre-treatment when you're doing the white underbase. So what's that all about with the pre-treatment and the white underbase?
Yeah, so you have to pre-treat a garment, and that's so the white ink has a surface to sit on. Otherwise, the white ink is too heavy, it'll sink into the shirt, and you won't really get an opaque print. So it's to stick and to also have vibrancy. And also, talking about vibrancy, you can also pre-treat, like if you really wanted to have really bright colors, again, it sits more on the pre-treatment surface as opposed to sinking into the shirt.
Okay, so we're going to do that right now. So
Yep.
let's see how that works.
So the first thing that you have to do is you actually need to press your shirt to get any moisture out of it, because you don't want to print on a wet shirt,
Okay.
right? So
we're getting humidity and moisture
correct.
out of the cotton and whatnot. What is this? What about the blends on there? Like for what is this one?
This one's a 50-50 blend, so
it's a 50-50
poly cotton.
Okay.
So with DTG, without pre-treatment, at least for my printer, the inks, it needs to be 50% cotton to stick to it without issues.
Right, that's correct. We'll talk more about that.
So now that we've gotten the moisture out of the shirt, so pre-treatment, the other thing too is pre-treatment is the most critical step by far in DTG.
Okay.
If you don't have a good pre-treat, you're not going to have a good print.
All right.
So what I do is I manually pre-treat. It's just because of my business model and the way that I print shirts. There are pre-treatment machines that you can get that can quicken the process, but we're just going to manually pre-treat.
Yeah, right.
And I just have a spray bottle that kind of makes it easier. So what I do is I am going to lay the pre-treatment down on the print area. So this is something that I've learned over time in my business, how much pre-treatment you need, because if you don't have enough, you're not going to have an opaque print, and if you have too much, the ink will kind of slough off later in washability. So.
Wow. So there's a lot of details
There
to
is.
being good
Yeah.
at DTG.
Yep. So, and what I'm going to do, so I've sprayed it. I think that I have a good base on this. I'm going to hover this dry, and this is just another method that I've learned over the years, is so you hover it to dry, and then right before it's done drying, you hit it with the heat press and lock in the pre-treat in there.
So how long do you hover?
Until it's almost done. So it's going to be about 45 seconds.
It's not too long. That's
No.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then the pressing is what? Just
So it's about,
time?
it depends on how much moisture is still left in there, but between 45 and 90 seconds. So the other thing that we can talk about too. So I love this bottle. This is a new thing. So you can do like a standard bottle, that's fine. But this one, as you pump it,
I
it
noticed
builds
it
pressure.
kind of, that it was...
Gives you an more even thing. So in the industry, a lot of people use the Wagner paint sprayers.
Yeah.
And those are good, but I can run this in my house.
Right.
In this little staging area.
Right,
So that's why
right.
I like it.
All right, so one more thing before we actually start printing this awesome shirt that I created. What is this machine you have? What kind of machine do you have?
So I have the Epson SureColor F2000. So it has 6 ink cartridges. So I have 2 white, 1 yellow. I have it with the 600 mils per cartridge. They all load in that way. I have the white edition. There's also a color edition. Then on this side, you just have your magenta, cyan, black. So yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's come in closer and see how this thing works.
Sounds good. So I'm going to load the shirt on. It's a little bit different than screen printing. You can thread it. I find that it's easiest to kind of lay it on top to center it the best. So I use a tuck lock platen. It's better than the hoop system in my opinion. So it just kind of tucks into the foam here. I check my alignment to make sure it looks a little crooked, so I'm gonna check it. But you just check, just like anything else, check your shoulders. Shoulders look good. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this. So when this is printing, so what it does first is it lays down the white base layer first. Then it's going to do a pause to kind of just let that gel for a couple of seconds. Then it's going to go back in and then lay the color over it. So when you pre-treat it, the particular pre-treatment that I use is meant for white ink. And what that means is, you'll see it in the design, it's going to put white under every part of the print area. So there are some rips that you can buy, some software that can help you reduce that a little bit. I don't use that personally, but there's definitely value in doing that.
Okay. So, what do you think about the color washability, the durability, and longevity of DTG compared to screen printing?
They're different, right? So, and also what we talked about earlier with the pre-treatment. Pre-treatment is critical. You can't have too little or you're not going to get a good print, and you can't have too much or it's going to wash out. So you learn that over time and you get the best washability. So my DTGs, so the difference that I have in the washability is not so much that the ink doesn't last, but it's more that the filibration, like not so much for this design, but if we were doing this on a white shirt, the ink goes more into the shirt. So just over time, as those wash, you just get the little fibers coming through.
Right.
And you see something similar, but screen printing is on top of the garment.
With plastisol ink especially, it's on top. Yeah, you can kind of get that. With water-based inks, you can get that ashy look over time, but that's correct, yeah. And it's interesting, you can see the number 3 is actually black, and there's white under there. Yep. So
what this is going to do, so we're gonna, I wish that white were a little more opaque, but we'll see how this comes out.
All right, and so what about like the intensity of colors? Like screen printing inks, especially plastisols, are very bright and intense and colorful. And so how does that compare? Just the color rendering ability even for a garment.
The color is pretty amazing, right? So there are some limitations in that, but I have a full spectrum of colors that I can hit brightly. White underbase helps a ton, right? So when you do a white underbase, you'll see, I think in this print you'll see a lot that the colors will come through pretty vibrant. Like I said, there's limitations. Like I can't do neon colors with DTG, right? Like I can't do a true neon.
Fluorescence.
You can't, right.
Yeah.
Because science.
Yeah.
Right? That's not how that works.
Right.
But there are ways that you can kind of mimic those, so you can lighten up your green, you can do those things. So yeah.
Now, as we're actually sitting here watching this thing print, how long do you think this shirt will take to print? Does it tell you in the computer?
It doesn't give me a time estimate, but it's usually about 2 minutes. Like for this size print, it's probably going to be 2 minutes if we were to look at like a timing of it.
So 2 minutes, for this this is a 5-color print actually, I believe. If I remember, I counted them.
Well, that's why we're DTGing it, right?
Yes, that's correct, because I only needed a couple of shirts, and why would I set this up? But what about the speed? On this particular job, I would say that in this case it's faster.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to print 5 colors on a rotary press.
Yep.
But in general, the speed of direct-to-garment compared to screen printing can be a little bit slower, yeah?
Totally, right? So it all depends. So like for 5 colors, this would be faster. But like a 1 color, and I do quite a bit of 1 color printing. If I were doing a high run of them, I would do screen printing every time. But if I'm doing one for a customer.
Right. Now that's where direct to garment kind of is awesome, is for the lower volume complex jobs.
Right.
Because for instance, if we wanted to compare, if we were to do this 5 color Jack White print on an automatic press and we were printing 1,000 pieces, in that scenario we could print them faster with screen printing.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the scenario or the situation, the specific job, what you're doing, and the volume and the complexity of the job. Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with this one, I think there's a couple things going on. This could use a little bit more pre-treatment, and also when I saw it come out, the white wasn't as opaque as I would have wanted. So just like screen printing, I'd go in and I'd hit it again with white, kind of cancel the job, hit it again.
So what, like at this point you could hit it again?
No,
you have to do a new shirt.
I would have to do a new shirt.
Yeah, so in that respect it is like screen printing. You might set up a job on press and print it and then realize that, you know what, it's not working out the best. I got to change something. So let's look at a different shirt. We'll take a stop here and then get another shirt here.
Well, and then so another thing too is, so on these, what we talked about with the white underbase, you can see a little bit of the white underbase peeking through. Yeah. So there's settings in the software where you can pull that down. So I'm going to pull that. I'm going to up the white, pull back the white underbase.
All right, let's try that and do it again.
So for this shirt, I've just adjusted my pre-treatment levels, so hopefully that will help. I'm also laying down another layer of white, which should help and reduce that under base that we talked about. So we'll see how this one goes.
All right, so you know, when somebody's looking at the investment for getting into direct to garment compared to screen printing, of course. Today we're kind of bouncing everything off of screen printing. Yeah. But so what can somebody expect in the range for a desktop unit like this? Because there are big giant units, of course, but a desktop unit such as this, what would somebody be looking at possibly?
So what's interesting, right, is that I've done both. I started up in screen printing, a starting package, and I started up in DTG. Right. So it's completely different. So screen printing, I think I got my entire setup for maybe about $1,000 to get 4-color press, get all the equipment, flash dryer, things like that. Yeah. For this, to get the printer, about 15, 16 grand at the time, and then the heat press, I think I'd have to look back at it, but well, you know, Hottronic. Yeah, they're about 4 grand, 3-4 grand.
Can be expensive. Yeah.
So all in, when I bought my first printer, my first heat press, and my first set of inks, the inks are very expensive. I'll come back to that. About $21,000 as my starting investment.
Yeah, and you know, for $21,000, I could sell you a complete manual shop package with forced air for water-based inks.
Yeah.
So, which meaning water-based and plastisol, but in other words, it would be a pretty decent shop package for that money. So, you know, and on that, like, you know, so the investment is pretty substantial compared to screen printing. Screen printing will always be accessible to the masses. I think that's what's going to keep it the king of textiles, honestly. Yep. And maintenance even. Maintaining a manual screen printing press and the dryers and things like that are fairly simple compared to this, yeah?
So yes and no. So it's different. It's kind of apples and oranges. So for this, I have to make sure that I do my daily maintenance around a printhead, do like cleaning around the printhead, cleaning my lines at the end of the night. Like there's a tube washing to make sure that your ink gets out so it doesn't dry in the line, dry in the head. So that cost has come down since when I first bought it. There used to be more expensive things, but we can show it afterwards. There is a waste tube, so anytime it's kind of recirculating, or after it recirculates and then you're cleaning the head, it is pushing ink out. So coming back to the ink cost, each one of those cartridges that I showed you before, they're $207 a piece. $207 a piece. So I'd have to calculate it down, but I know someone already has done that for us, where you're, you know, flushing, you know, $4 to $7 worth of ink when you clean. Right.
And before I ask you about clogging,
sure.
How much does it cost to replace a printhead if you have to do that?
So I have a model that has a more expensive printhead. So the printhead and the labor to do it, about $3,000.
That's pretty hefty.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you need it for it to run. So
do you have any idea how often a printhead might break down? Well, on your machine you might have an idea, but like, is it something that happens a lot? Is it regularly?
So again, with this particular unit, there are quite a few printhead replacements, but I actually think that it's more due to the pump and cap assembly. It has like a faulty part over there, so then it's not shutting. Okay. So then your printhead is drying out. So again, it's one of those things that, like, looking at it, doing these printhead tests at the beginning of your day, and seeing if you have any clogs and catching those as fast as possible. I have saved, so this year alone I've saved a couple of heads because I've caught problems with that particular part of the printer.
That has to do with clogging, evidently, of some kind.
Drying out. Well, it's
drying of the ink around that head area.
Yeah, so we're in Arizona, right? Yeah. So we're humid, so I run a humidifier in the room to keep my humidity up above 50, which, again,
so you do that all the time?
I do that all the time.
So all the time this machine is under 50% humidity?
Over, yeah. But
you're always humidifying this room?
Yeah, and that, if we lived in the Midwest, right, I wouldn't have to do that.
Right, yes. Yeah, it's especially dry here. We can have, what do we have, like 15 to 20% humidity?
Yeah, right now, monsoon season a little higher.
Yeah. So clogging then, like, of the heads themselves, like you use yours pretty regularly, right? Well,
and I'm not a daily user, so I batch print, right? Because I still have a day job.
So how long do you go in between printing? And you don't have any problems, or?
No, so I print, so the reason that I bought this particular machine was that I could print once a week and still be fine. So I do print 2 to 3 times a week, but I do leave it, if I'm traveling or whatever is going on in my schedule, I'll leave it for a week, and then I'm good. If you're leaving it longer than that, there are storage modes that you can you take the ink out of the lines, you put the cleaning solution in it.
Wow, okay, yeah, so you can kind of mothball it if you had to.
So look at that! Wow. See, look at this prettiness that's coming out of here.
More intense. Yeah, we'll take a look at these shirts and show you the print results, of course.
So, and the other thing too, and Jonathan and I talked about this before the video. So this is my particular unit. I know that there are people who've kind of modified actual tabletop printers to make them into DTG.
Right.
But so we talked about my investment. This is, I think, a pretty standard investment. Like, if you're talking about cornets and some of the larger units, you're talking 6-figure investments.
Yeah, they're huge, the floor units. But yes, absolutely. I would say that the units under 15,000, those ones that you see that are like $6,000 and whatnot, are not really worth the time. I don't think.
You have challenges
I think that's
I wouldn't want to play with.
Greatest. Yeah, I would go with a name brand product, so that you have excellent support, or whatever support you can get, but yeah, I think going with a name brand is much better than a modified thing from a private person. So can you tell me a little bit maybe about the cost, per shirt of printing? Like, how much does it cost to print a shirt like this? With DTG inks and stuff being what they are, and comparatively to screen printing, and evidently you have a way to figure that out. I
do. So, I have an Epson DTG printer, so it's an ink company. So they have good inks, but they're not cheap inks, right? So, like I said, each cartridge is about $207 for each cartridge. So it's going to lay down quite a bit of white, as you can see, which is going to be the most expensive part of our print, because it's laying so much more compared to the other inks.
Right.
And so in mine, again, I'm using the OEM software, so the Garment Creator for Epson. So in there is an estimator. So you put in what you're paying for your ink, and then it estimates how many milliliters are used for this print. So let me pull that up. I'll talk about it. So I pay $207 per 600 ml cartridge. So this one has an image area of 102 square inches, and it's going to use a little over 6 milliliters. So what this is doing, we are laying down more white ink for this particular design because we didn't like the results the first time. So what this is doing is laying down ink, the white ink, then it's going to go back, lay white ink again, and then our colors. But it's going to be about 6 mils total of everything.
So does it tell you what that costs? How much does this shirt cost?
Yeah, so this shirt costs $2.16
to print.
To print and ink
the shirt
cost.
itself cost us what?
I have to look at about $3.
Yeah. Okay, so it cost us about $5.25 maybe.
Yeah, and then pre-treatment.
Forgot about pre-treatment.
About 30 cents.
30 cents. So wow. So, yeah. So $5.50, $5.60 or so.
Yeah.
That's our cost of this shirt.
Yep.
Okay, so obviously with screen printing, it's a lot harder to determine costs because we don't have the fancy computer to help us. But, you know, again, generally speaking, if you were comparing to printing this on an automatic press on a high volume, the cost per shirt with screen printing would be much lower for printing. It would literally be pennies,
right,
for the ink. And mostly, probably on screen printing, your labor, your printer would be your biggest cost, not so much the ink and supplies for printing the shirt. In fact, you know, big runs, shirts that are sold in the hundreds or 200,000 piece level get printed at like, you know, 25, 50 cents a piece.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where, you know, screen printing is more, you know, it's better suited. Is that grammatically correct?
Yes, we'll go with that.
It's better suited, you know, for high volume, whereas direct-to-garment is awesome for stuff like we're doing today. And for businesses like yours.
Right, and so so in my business where I specialize is, you know, I'm doing designs, I'm selling them direct to consumers, so I like to try out
prototype.
Yeah, I like to prototype out, see if they sell, and then if I do sell volume, if I have a higher volume, I will burn a screen, right? Like if I'm doing a single color.
Meaning you'll prototype a one color.
Yep,
so
I will.
Natalie will do a one color design on the direct-to-garment when you're not sure if the design will sell. And then if it sells, you screen print it.
Correct.
Okay, so prototyping is very cool. That's pretty interesting, actually. So what kind of problems, other than some of the ones we've mentioned, but what kind of other problems might you throw out there that people wouldn't expect, or something you ran across?
Yeah, so we talked about the maintenance, and when something does go down, it's not like you pop a screen and you can make a new screen and you can be back up and running. So if my printhead, so if my printhead goes down and I have to wait for that part to come in 1 to 2 days, pay a service person to come out and repair that for me, I can be down. And it happened to me last Christmas season. Last December, my printhead went down. And it took 3 days to get back up and running. 3 days still phenomenal. Like that's great for what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But 3 days of when I'm printing every single day, I'm 3 days behind.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. During your busiest season.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
So what other problems could we have? What kind of electrical does this thing take?
So the printer itself, I'd have to look at the specs again, but it's only a few amps. It's not.
It can run in a house.
It can run in a house.
It doesn't need like high juice. It doesn't necessarily need 220 power. This would be 120 or 115 power.
Correct.
And the amperage would probably be very low because it's kind of like a computer printer. I mean, after all.
Yes.
Just a big one.
Yes, so the bigger power draw with this is for the heat press. And we didn't talk about the heat press and why that's needed. So you can tunnel dry these, right?
Right.
But these water-based DTG inks take 2 to 3 minutes to fully cure. Like you could ramp it up, scorch your t-shirt so you need a very long tunnel. There are people who do it.
Yeah, I think what they use is a forced air dryer.
Yes,
and
correct.
It's a larger dryer in which the belt can be slowed down quite a bit and the shirt can go through, and it's... Of course, please don't forget that I do sell screen printing equipment and supplies at catspitscreenprintsupply.com, and if you like the information you are receiving in these super awesome educational videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. It means a lot to me, and it makes me motivated. It keeps me motivated to keep producing videos free right here on youtube.com for you all to enjoy. So make sure to check out catspitscreenprintsupply.com if you need screen printing equipment or supplies, and subscribe to my YouTube channel today. got that hot forced air,
Right.
which is going to be really good with the water-based type inks.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. It's very awesome. Do you have any other thoughts that you might want to give somebody today? Like if there's somebody's looking at screen printing, and DTG to start a business, do you have any thoughts that you might tell them?
They're just different. So the thing that I would tell you is, to do your research, really find out what you're getting into. Talk to salespeople, that's fine, but really talk to people who are using the printers, because those are the people who are really living it day in and day out, and can tell you what they think of the printer and how it's doing for their business. The other thing too is yes, these machines can make you a lot of money, but it's going to take time to learn these things. You're going to take it out of the box, training or not, it's going to take time. I did experiments when I got this. I'm a nerdy scientist, right? But I legitimately pulled out a notebook and figured out how much pre-treat, how long to cure things, all these things to get the best possible print. And even now, you've seen it. I've been doing this for 4 years now.
Right.
And that first print that we did, it was not my favorite print.
Right.
We dialed it in, you do those things, but it's something that you learn over time. But don't get frustrated. But this is a significant investment. And I think if I were just starting out in the business, I would not jump into DTG. What I would do is to jump in with a contract printer who has a DTG. So what we talked about, the prototyping, you're doing that with somebody else.
Yeah.
So they have the machine, they're doing that, and you haven't made that ridiculous large investment.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. I think that's pretty good. Your experience, that's funny. Maybe you should go into consulting in the future. So basically, it's what you're saying is that even though it is a computer printer type thing attached to your computer, it's not as simple as clicking and printing, and you're going to need to learn the nuances and the little intricacies of DTG printing in order to get the best prints at the lowest cost and not hurt yourself.
Right. And so that's the thing, right now, and I get that it's a challenge, I too would love to be able to print white ink and not have to pre-treat. That's a really big part of what we've talked about. And like I said, that's something you're going to have to learn as you go through this. I think in the future, game changers will be, where we don't have to do this. But right now, this is our life. This has been our life since DTG came out. I think it's actually, it's been out couple decades.
It's been out quite some time. And, and that's the other thing is I was used to these machines, when you wash this, that it might fade a little bit, but you say now that's different. They don't fade as much.
So I haven't had that experience. You will get the filibration sometimes. I can't tell you that you're not going to have some fibers pulling up.
Sure.
That's why pressing and getting everything in the right direction when you're first doing it.
But the color stability on the wash, the first wash, it's going to stay pretty much the same.
So and we can show it after we're cured. In my print, in my experience with my inks, what you have that first day for this is what you're going to have after you've washed it. Right. Anything else, it's just like screen printing, wash inside out, be nice to it.
Yeah, well, plastisol inks are pretty tough.
But
it's true. If you want the best longevity, it should be washed inside out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So this is the larger platen. This is a 14 by 16 platen, and like I talked about it a little bit earlier, is that this is the hoop. So this is where you lay it down and you kind of put the hoop on it to lock it in place. So we talked about the pre-treatment. There are a few out there, but I do work with RTP Apparel. So they sell shirts that are already pre-treated. So all you do is you press them, get the moisture out. You still don't want to print on a wet shirt, right? So then you just print on it and it's already pre-treated. So we talked about before, yes, you have to pre-treat for white ink. And then the other way that people pre-treat is to get a vibrant print. So that's what I'm going to show you now, printing one of my book totes, or one of my book prints. If you didn't simulate it, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 color.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that now.
So this shirt is actually a shirt you bought that is already pre-treated.
Correct.
And
Correct.
It's white, which usually most people wouldn't pre-treat, would they?
Yeah, but what you're doing, so there's a couple things, and we'll see it here. So it gives you a more vibrant print, and it helps with the filibration. So what they show in their marketing material. right? Is that, hey, this is what it looks like washed, and here's what ours looks like washed.
Right, yeah.
So the other thing too, so with my particular printer and inks, the yellow ink is viscous, or it's not viscous enough. It's a pretty thin ink. So what it can do is it can bleed into things around it. So there's challenges with that color space with the printer. So what I have set this print up to do is to lay the yellow down first, kind of pause, and then the black goes over it so they don't run into each other.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't, that you can actually tell it what color you want to go down first in this multicolor situation.
So, and I'm not sure like how, I know that this is a challenging color space, the yellow versus the black and red on black. And this is how I've gotten around it, so I don't know if Epson like designed it that way.
That.
This is how they did it. But yeah, so it's laying down the yellow first, and then it'll come behind and print the rest of the colors. But it's kind of weird, right? So you get to see yellow ink, like.
Yeah, because it's actually CMYK.
Yep.
Here, so that's the yellow in all the colors.
Mm-hmm.
And the yellow in the yellow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting that you can do that like that.
Oh, and when we were talking about the cost estimator, so for this print, I have estimated the cost for this, and it's about 56 cents.
And this is one of your designs.
This is one of my designs, yep. Right now, everybody wants to buy this yellow print on this white shirt right now, but I promise you're going to be impressed in about a minute when it comes back out. So this is actually one of my first designs that I ever came up with in the shop. And when I first started, before I ever screen printed, I just did like poster prints,
yes,
right, that people could buy. And so when I started going into screen printing, people were like, "Oh, I love this design. Can you do this for me?" And I was like, "Nope," because I wasn't going to burn 9 screens and or a simulated CMYK.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. I was not set up to do that.
Yeah,
so
that's some people actually discover that by accident. They start designing designs and they don't realize that, translating it to screen printing is quite the task.
Well, right, and as we see, people want full color. And so that's just another thing with DTG is, one color is great and one color is still going to be the crux of the screen printing business. But the DTG can really do these multicolor ones and can do them one-offs.
So this is one of those designs that you'll print on demand when people order it?
Correct.
And so you can just pick the size, and do they get to choose any, like, there's only a specific color you print this one on, or do you have to allow them maybe one or two?
So because this one is a wider color spectrum, because I want all of these colors to pop, I limit it to a few colors that you can choose.
Yeah.
But everything can always be customized, right? Like I've printed this on a black shirt, and you just reverse the black and the white.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, another thing I couldn't do, another level of customization, it would be more difficult to do if I were just trying to screen print this. Like, oh, I really love your design, but I want it on a black shirt.
Yeah, it would be a completely different screen setup.
Yep.
Artwork and screen setup, because when we print on a black shirt in screen printing, we use the black of the shirt as the design, as the black in the design. So the artwork is completely different as from white shirts. Well, yeah, a lot of people don't realize that either, especially customers when they're ordering and they set something up on white and then they want to print it on black, and the only way to do it easy is to slap a big white underbase under there and make it into a sweat patch, which I've done. Some customers only, they want, 200 pieces in white and 12 in black.
Right.
So
it's going to cost you a lot of money to do it that way.
So they usually are okay if you just do whatever you have to print those 12. But technically you would have to reset everything. Yeah. This is what? A matter of, do you have 2 different files, or do you just tell it that it's going on a black shirt and it automatically
So there's a little bit that it can do for you, like it could, no. So this is,
take a look.
This is the color that you get.
A little closer. See if we can do this without messing up the focus too much. Yeah, that's pretty bright.
So it's bright, it gives you a good color space, and we can see too, like, we can show it after it's dried too, because I think you do have a little bit of vibrancy loss. Pre-treating helps when you're drying it. Pre-treating helps with that a bit, but this is one of my favorite designs to do. And I was talking to Jonathan about it earlier. The reason that I actually got purchased a DTG machine to begin with is I wanted to take these prints and do them on demand at in-person events. So like, hey, you love this, you love this shirt, but you hate the color white. You do not want to own any white shirts in your, in your closet. So, hey, I want this on a heathered gray shirt instead, and we can do that for you.
Yeah, and direct-to-garment is actually awesome for point of sale. I was mentioning that earlier as well. Tourist areas, boardwalks, these types of places where people are traveling, and they're very willing to pay more for a shirt that's customized, and they're not really concerned with longevity on those products, to tell you the truth. It's an instant gratification thing that reminds you of the trip or whatever for a little while, and most people will accept less quality for a novelty shirt printed on demand at point of sale, like a tourist thing, So this is one of your designs, and again, if anybody likes this, you can find this Grammatical Art on Etsy, right?
And also my .com.
It was grammaticalara.com, right?
So the other thing that I was going to tell you too is that so this is a labor savings, right? So
buying the shirt
pre-treated is a labor savings.
Right.
And what I actually found out when you're comparing this is a ring spun cotton t-shirt. When you're comparing this to other ring spun cotton t-shirts, it may be a little bit more expensive, but it's on par with what American Apparel ring spun cotton shirts were for the US made type thing. So it's still a pretty good price point.
Yeah, all right, very cool.
So now we're going to cure the shirt. So we talked about before that this is what we use the heat press for. Again, there are some other things out there, a long conveyor dryer, tunnel to forced air. There's also like Lawson's has like a shirt drawer.
Yeah, a special DTG type
so they have
dryer
that
thing.
So for this, we've hovered it, just let some of the inks kind of off gas, get some of that moisture out. Use the parchment paper. This just helps protect the top of your heat press plate from getting too dirty, and it just gives a nice even contact to everything. So for white ink, this does need to be cured longer, again, for my inks, for my printer. So this has to be cured for 90 seconds on it's between 330 and 338. Because this is a heathered with a 50 poly, I have it at the 330, so it doesn't burn.
All right.
So now we just kind of let that go. And then the other thing too, this is just another thing that you kind of learn, is 90 seconds is a good starting point, right? So 90 seconds you should have cure, but if you have a lot of white ink on there, things like that, you still may need to cure it a little bit longer.
Yeah, and the more ink you print, probably the longer it'll take to cure, just like with screen printing.
Right. So yeah, talking, and we don't have to talk too much about this because you're going to have the longest video ever about DTG, but DTG and screen printing they're similar and different all at the same time, right? So you still have inks, you still have to cure them, they're just a little bit different. So I don't know, how long does it take to cure water-based inks? Because I work all in plastisol.
Again, it's going to depend on how much you actually print, and if you're using a forced air dryer or forced air flash cure, it should be pretty quick, probably a minute or less. Unless you're building up a whole bunch of ink. The water-based inks that I sell now, I think, are curing at about 280 or so, and I think it's probably. The plastisol inks are very critical, I think, probably like the direct-to-garment. Water-based ink, I think, is a little bit easier to heat set. Yeah. Water-based ink stains, screen printing ink. Yeah. It stains. It's a good stainer, So, as long as you heat set it well enough, it should be easier, I think, to cure than plastisol. You know, but yeah, it varies. There's no set answer to that either. How long does it take to cure a shirt? It really depends on the shirt. Some shirts take, like, for some reason, they heat up quicker in the oven than other shirts. A thinner shirt will get hot faster than a heavier weight shirt. Yeah. Color also. Dark shirts will get hotter faster. White shirts reflect infrared heat. Things like that.
Yeah.
So
it's cool. So when I opened it up and the parchment stuck a little bit, that indicates to me that
has moisture.
It still has moisture. The other thing too, it could be a little bit heavy on the pre-treat, but it's just, again, things that you... I could take us in the weeds all day, man. I could take us into the weeds of all the things that could ever go wrong with this.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to emphasize. Again, it's not click and print. You really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, it really is a science, and people who've done both of these, again, they're two different things, but you learn a lot from each one. So I've learned a lot from screen printing to take to DTG. I've learned a lot from DTG to take to screen printing.
All right, so that was pretty awesome. I had a lot of fun today. It was very cool. Thanks a lot, Natalie, for having us over. You're so awesome. We really appreciate your support. Make sure to check out Natalie online again.
Grammaticalara.com.
Anywhere else?
Grammaticalara.etsy.com.
Etsy.
Also,
that's right. Etsy.
Instagram.
All right.
There we go.
Instagram.
Same
That's
thing.
right. Instagram is very important. But Grammatical Art, you can totally Google you, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So, very cool. Thanks a lot for watching today. We're going to head back over to the Catspit shop and wrap it up. All right, so here is the print close up. So this is direct to garment. It hasn't been washed yet. You have to pre-wash, before you wear them. So I'm going to wash it, and probably, maybe I'll do a follow-up video and show you the wash test next week, perhaps. But it's actually pretty impressive. It's very bright, and we were actually missing 2 channels, as we, discovered after we finished shooting. Natalie took a look at the machine, and there were 2 white channels missing, not printing. So if we, that means they were clogged or something like that. And if they were printing, this would have been, a little bit more heavy coverage, a little bit brighter, but I think it's pretty cool. Direct to garment is fascinating, and I think, it has certain applications which it's very well suited for. But, screen printing is about volume, and that's exactly why we did these 2 or 3 shirts with direct to garment. Since this print doesn't have a tremendous amount of ink on it, it will probably be very, very soft once it's washed. So the hand on this particular print, I think, will be excellent. All right, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Thank you, Natalie at Grammatical Art. Make sure to check out her links in the video description below. Please check out her work online, grammaticalara.com, and you can find her, of course, on Instagram, Grammatical Art. Okay, so check out the links in the video description below, and thank you again, Natalie. We really appreciate your super awesomeness, and I hope that you all enjoyed this video and learned a little bit something more about direct-to-garment versus screen printing. Thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you next time.